Saint Joseph has been a constant and consistent patron and protector of our family, specifically in times where we've had need for homes or jobs, those two things. For example, when we were newly married, we moved across the country from Spokane to the Washington, D.C. area. We needed to sell a house that was still in Spokane. It was not going very quickly, but finally it sold to a man named Joseph.
Yeah, after we'd been praying a novena to Saint Joseph. Yes.
When we arrived in the D.C. area, we needed to unload our truck really quickly, and we were kind of struggling to get it done. And this really nice gentleman came up and offered to help us. His name was Joseph. Helped us move into our house. Then when we moved back from Washington, D.C. to the Seattle area, again, we had a house in the D.C. area. This long-distance landlord thing is not great. But we needed to sell it as well. And the sale, the funding for the buyers was delayed for really weird, mysterious reasons. But it soon became clear. The funding finally cleared and the house sold on March 19th, which is the feast day of Saint Joseph.
Good Saint Joseph. We highly encourage prayer to him, especially for your family's needs. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about finances and money for your household as well.
Mm-hmm.
So with everything that's going on with the pandemic and the coronavirus, this is a time of great uncertainty and a lot of anxiety. None of us really knows how this is going to play out in the weeks and months ahead. And we're all thinking about how secure is our own financial house and our household at this time. So this comes at a really good time. We had already planned to talk about money in April because it is National Personal Finances Month.
Hey.
But we really are glad to be able to share our story with you during this month and really encourage you. There's so much you can do to set up your house well, your financial house, and also really use our faith and turn to Saint Joseph and ask him for help to provide for your family, to provide that protection and stewardship that we need to navigate whatever storms might be ahead.
Yeah, and St. Joseph is not a stranger to crisis and uncertainty, right? Look at his life, what we know of it from the scriptures. It starts out with the woman he is about to marry becomes pregnant, not from him. An angel had to explain that one to him. Then he had to flee his home with his newborn baby and wife because to protect Jesus and become a refugee in Egypt and take a long, uncertain journey to a foreign country. And then the next episode, he loses Jesus for 3 agonizing days. And he and Mary are frantically looking for their child in the city, and they can't find him. And so Joseph, he's no stranger to hard times and uncertainty and crisis, and he can definitely help us.
Absolutely. The other thing about Joseph is he trusted in God, and he also acted in very simple, practical ways to do what was needed, to do what needed to be done. And that's what we need to do as well. We need to really trust in God and turn to God in prayer. And we encourage you to pray to St. Joseph as well for your specific household's needs. But also, we need to take an active part and be responsible stewards with the gifts God has given us, including our money, and really just learn the skills and take the steps that we need to take to set ourselves up to provide well for our family and our children and ensure a stable future. So we're going to share some practical steps and best practices for personal finance with you now. But before we get into those steps, we're going to share a little bit more about our personal finance story, because our money story, we had to learn the hard way and it took us a long time, but we finally figured it out and things are working really well now that we got the secret sauce.
Yeah. So we've told bits and pieces of this story many times. This might be the first time we go through it all.
And we're going to plug each section of our story into the Marriage Apostles Path, which you're probably familiar with by now. So you can see how yeah, the different chapters of our story are reflected in
That's
that time.
right. So we're actually going to pick up about, 10 years ago, maybe 9 years ago. And that was a time when I had unexpectedly lost my job and was unemployed. And that was no good, right? It was survival mode for sure. And we didn't really know what was going to happen next. And there was a lot of anxiety from making ends meet and all of the things that come with that situation, we were definitely feeling at that time.
So that was survival mode.
That was survival mode.
Yeah, I think it was 8 years ago because
Something like that.
Cecilia was born right after that.
Mm-hmm.
So we really grew in awareness that we need to figure out our finances. We had a bit of emergency savings to live off of during that time of unemployment, thank goodness. And it really just lasted about 3 months, right? Like September through mid-December.
It was really stretched, yeah.
So we became aware that we needed to learn more about managing our money well and we just didn't ever want to be in that precarious situation again, feeling that vulnerable.
That's right. So every survival mode can lead to awareness because once you come out of a period of survival mode, usually you think through those things and then you gain awareness on, you learn some lessons.
Mm-hmm. So what we did right after Nathan got the job offer in mid-December that brought us out of that time of survival mode was we conceived Cecilia. So we
that was exciting.
Really happy to have another little baby. And we also enrolled ourselves in Dave Ramsey's Financial Peace University online. Our friends in Everett, town north of Seattle where we had been living, they had all been taking the Financial Peace University in person at our parish that we were part of. But we were moving away, so we couldn't participate in that. So we did the online class. And we downloaded the audios and watched the videos over and over again. We watched the videos and did the workbooks like one time through. But then also the audios, we would just play in the car. We played them while we painted our new kitchen in our new house together. We really wanted to get it and understand these concepts and figure out how to apply them, figure out what of his baby steps we were on and what we needed to do next, and then what the big picture was. And we got it. We figured out our next best step. We worked on that for several years, and that next step was to build up a 3 to 6 months emergency savings fund. Since we'd just been through unemployment and it hurt,
we didn't want to be there again.
We made it a bigger 6-month fund
because
we wanted a nice big cushion to protect us if that should ever happen again.
And so this process, us actually taking those steps and making those changes in our lives, this is now the conversion stage, right? So we had this awareness that we needed to change, and then we sought help, learned what to do, and made changes in our lives to make our, in this case, financial situation better. So now we're in conversion.
And conversion is an ongoing thing. Like it took a lot of practice and trying and forgetting or falling off the wagon and then trying again and again. That's how change happens. It's just that persistent, try again, start again, do a little better next time. But we did.
Yeah. And conversion, again, it just means, a turn. It means a change, for something better. So this stage of conversion is us learning and getting our financial house in order.
So then we really did become disciples of Dave Ramsey. We learned his program. We saw it getting results in our lives. We got really enthusiastic about it. And we decided, to take the next step and the next step with his baby steps he recommends, to the point where we decided what we were going to do is once we had our emergency savings in place, and that took probably about 3 years for us to save up that big cushion, of being frugal, cutting back on eating out, thrift store shopping for me and the girls, lots of all those little changes, selling stuff on Craigslist, doing side jobs to get in extra income, putting it all towards that one goal. Then we decided, okay, let's do something big and crazy. Let's try to pay our house off in 3 years. And we were really excited once we started in on that process because we just had this big goal and we thought, okay, this will be great. And then partway through that, that was
At
our
the very
discipleship.
beginning of it, right?
Oh yeah, it was just a couple months into it.
Yeah.
Our parish.
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry. Before we get into that story, which we'll tell in just a second, part of discipleship is the fruits of the conversion, right? So we made these changes, and we made these good changes, and our financial house is in order, and part of the fruit in our marriage is that we're on the same page, and so we became much more unified in our financial decisions, which reflects in all sorts of areas in our life. So we're communicating better, we're making decisions better, and we're more able to serve each other in really real practical ways. So when we're talking about our budget, both of us became much more willing and fast to say, you know what, you get that coat that you wanted this month. My new shoes can wait. Or whatever it is in the financial world. That's all part of discipleship, right? It's being able to serve and be a disciple of Christ, and also to serve our spouse through these new conversions that we've experienced in our lives.
Oh yeah, that's a really good point. I'm glad you said that. Yeah, we really felt like we were pulling together.
Yeah, and so part of the religious discipleship is a big part of this was a desire to get our charitable giving, especially to our parish, up to a level that we were happy with. Because at the beginning of the journey, we weren't happy with how much we were giving. It was pocket change.
It's very small.
Yeah. So that was a big part of it too.
Yeah, we had a goal of wanting to give 5% of our income to our local parish, and then another 5% to other charities that were valuable, meaningful for us, like pro-life and Catholic Community Services and things like that, Archdiocesan Appeals. So Dave Ramsey teaches you to be outrageously generous and
at the appropriate time.
Yeah. Well, God had been preparing us and we didn't even know it. But our parish started up a capital campaign to build a parish hall. And all the elements around this really spoke to our heart. We love community building, and St. Joseph was part of the story too.
He was.
Our parish hall capital campaign was dedicated to St. Andre Bessette, who has a big devotion to St. Joseph. So we both, through all the circumstances surrounding this capital campaign kickoff, we both independently of each other really felt in our heart when we prayed about it and listened, we felt this call to do something really crazy big for our capital campaign. And then when we talked about it with each other,
we were both embarrassed to say it.
We're like, what do you think God's telling you? What do you think God's telling you?
No, you go first.
What he was telling us was, build my house at the church. We'd been working on paying off our own house, and we got part of the way, but there was a big chunk left.
It was at the beginning. And so we both discerned, like Sarah said, independently, that we would contribute to the capital campaign the amount of the amount of our mortgage that remained.
Which was a
the
pretty sizable
balance.
amount. And this was a 3-year capital campaign. So we felt like, okay, God's calling us to do this for 3 years instead of our own house payoff. And we didn't really know how this was going to work out, but we trusted God and we stepped forward in faith. And lo and behold, God totally made it possible for us. He promoted Nathan's career at the time, and he helped us really focus our spending so that we were actually able to pay off the capital campaign pledge and our house in 4.5 years.
Yeah, 4.5.
Just a little over 4 years. So God cannot be outdone in generosity. And as part of this capital campaign, we were chosen to be the couple that shared with our whole, give a talk to share with our whole parish community what God had inspired us to give. So that was a really special moment, and kind of scary and vulnerable too, to just, share that number publicly with everyone that we knew from church.
Parish.
But God brought so many good fruits from that. And we saw a lot of other people light up with this fire of like trusting God radically and being generous in a big way. And our capital campaign
came in over. It just finished, a couple months ago?
Like a couple weeks ago. And
maybe a month ago? Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, The parish raised 102%.
No.
Over. That almost never happens. We're so happy.
So we got to experience apostleship because
Yes.
we were just telling people about, what Dave Ramsey's program had done in our life and encouraging other people to be generous. And
Right.
Yeah.
And specifically for our parish, which we felt really good about
Yeah.
in that moment.
And I've also given out tons of Dave Ramsey's books for free to
Yeah.
lots of people that we meet in our lives. So we were kind of Dave
That's
Ramsey
right.
apostles too. But that's because we hadn't met this Catholic couple, Jonathan and Amanda Texera, until very recently. But they teach those same concepts, but they have a Catholic background. They're both focus missionaries that then married each other, and now they have this company, Wallet Win, which teaches those concepts, but using their Catholic formation as the context for it.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. All right, so that was a Reader's Digest version, but that gives you some glimpse of our financial journey over the past decade or so.
And so now we have this coronavirus situation, right? So we had just gotten to the point where we were saving up for these awesome goals. We paid off the capital campaign, paid off our house, and then we were like, let's take this big trip to Europe with our whole family.
France.
We'll go to France. We'll go to Disneyland. Nathan wants to
I
renovate
wanna-
the kitchen. So we had all this money saved up for all these things. Okay, then the whole world stops for the coronavirus. And here we are in this position that God had prepared us for starting 10 years ago.
Step by
Step
step.
by step. We're feeling really, really grateful that we have this money. We don't need to go to France. France is closed right now anyway.
No one's going to
Disneyland,
France.
it's closed.
That's right.
But we feel like we can take care of our family. We're going to be okay. If we just wash our hands and take care of the health, the money part is going to be okay no matter what happens with recession or whatever happens with the global or local economy.
And so I know, of course, we recognize how privileged and we are there, but we want to encourage you, think about how God has prepared you for this moment. Whether it's large things or small, there are some blessings, there's some lights in your life right now that you can be grateful for and that God has placed there. And if you think about it, God was probably planning that light to be in your life at this moment from long ago. And so think about that a little bit and offer a prayer of thanks to God for that.
Yes.
Okay, that was a little aside, but it was important.
So here's some things you can do now to take stock of where you are with getting your financial house in order. Where are you now? Where do you want to be 5 years from now? How will you get there? Because, we need to prepare and plan now for, like we said, the storms ahead so you can take care of yourselves and your family no matter what comes.
That's right. So the first thing, we're going to give you 3 free tools to use for finances. And these are really standard things. The first is the net worth statement. So we started tracking our net worth when we were in grad school with a line graph in Excel.
Because we're nerds.
We are nerds. I still have that. And it really helped, making it pictorial and having the numbers, it really helped encourage and motivate us over the years to see that shift slowly but surely up and to the right? Bit by bit. And you look at the long haul. So the net worth statement is a snapshot of your financial situation. And it's basically, very simply, how much you own, what are the assets, the value of your home, what's in your bank account, what's in your retirement account, etc. How much you owe, and you subtract how much you owe.
From your...
Right.
Hopefully what you own is a greater amount.
So for example, if your home is worth X number of dollars, but then you have a mortgage that's worth Y number of dollars, you would put the X number on how much you own and the Y number on how much you owe, and the difference between that is the balance that goes towards your net worth.
So what Nathan did with our personal Bartell household line graph is he took a snapshot of our net worth every 6 months. So January
I still do that.
and June, and that gave us enough information to plot.
So that's right.
Long term.
The net worth statement is only really super helpful and fun if you do it over time. So to see the trends and see how things are moving.
It helps you keep in mind your future and your overall trajectory so that you're not just making decisions for your short term, but for your long term. Like maybe you don't need to invest in, giant amounts of toilet paper for the short term. Maybe you make sure you have some extra cash on hand in savings to, get you through a longer term situation.
That's great. So it's your net worth statement that's going to show you your long-term financial goals and how you're doing against those.
So if you have some investments right now, they're all going down. The stock market's going down, which makes this an amazing time to invest. So if you can, squeeze some money out of your budget, which we're going to talk about next,
right.
and start investing a little more in the months ahead, you're going to be so happy you did several years from now. But don't freak out about the dips now because it's always a long game when you're looking at the investments in the market.
It's true. All right. Tip number 2 or thing number 2 to help you with your finances.
And that is the budget. So again, we started budgeting when we were in grad school, but it really didn't do us much good until years later when we started doing a zero-sum budget the way Dave Ramsey teaches. That really clicked and made a shift for us. So a zero-sum budget is deciding ahead of time for your month ahead how much of the money that you have earned, that you know about, how much you're going to spend it in each of the categories. So it's, as Dave Ramsey explains, it's giving every dollar a job. It's not counting up what you spent after the fact.
That's what we used to do.
Yeah, that really didn't do
It's not actually budgeting.
That's
just
like
bookkeeping, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, right. So you're making a conscious decision ahead of time about how much you're going to allocate into your different budget categories. Whether it's like 800 in groceries or 1,000 in groceries, and $200 in gas and all the different amounts, your miscellaneous category, and your little category for his spending fun money and her spending fun money as well.
And you make this every month. So because every month is different, right? One month you might have school fees, and that's way bigger in September than it is, in August. Or another month you might have
January, our car tabs are due.
Yeah, car tabs, insurance payments
fees
are different, or whatever, right? Every month is different. You might have a road trip or a vacation, and that'll, throw it off. So you make a separate budget for each month.
And you decide together. You really, if you can do this as a joint thing, that's what's going to bring the unity. And then every week, what Dave Ramsey teaches is to do...
brings us right into number 3.
Oh, okay. Actually, wait. I just wanted to talk about budgeting a little bit more.
Sorry.
We wanted to share our favorite budgeting software to help you do a zero-sum budget. Dave Ramsey has one called...
Every
Dollar, which a lot of people like.
We haven't actually used it.
We looked at it, but what we really like, some Everett friends of ours taught us about, it's called YNAB. That stands for You Need a Budget. And it makes it really easy to plan ahead your allocations and then adjust them in real time, because you're always going to need to make ongoing adjustments once you realize, I actually spent $1,300 in groceries instead of $1,000. That means I have to take $300 out of some other category to keep this zero sum.
That's right.
Okay, just a word about our current crisis. A lot of people tend to stress spend during times of crisis. I've noticed this too. When I've had health crises, I tend to go to the Fred Meyer and buy a bunch of
toilet paper.
I'm not a big toilet paper buyer, but I don't know. I'll buy over-the-counter medicines or vitamins and stuff. I don't know what.
Oh, health food.
Yeah.
Organics.
Okay.
Expensive organics.
Yeah. That's what I tend to spend on. Yeah, I know. I buy thrift store clothing, but organic food. I guess spend more on what goes inside than outside. But anyway, try to watch and curb that, because you need to hold your ship steady so that you can, navigate a smooth course ahead. Cut back your spending now and save as much as you can right now. Using a budget will help you stay vigilant and accountable. What Dave Ramsey teaches us to do also is to review this budget together with both of our eyeballs on it at the same time once a week. And Nathan's going to tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's called, we call it a weekly financial meeting. More colloquially, we call it Treasury Tuesday because we do it on Tuesdays.
Hey, we tried with Financial Friday, but we were both too wiped out by Friday.
Yeah, and Money Monday didn't work either, so we settled on Treasury Tuesday.
That's right.
All right, so we started this, about 7 years ago, and we started with Dave Ramsey and we did his thing, and it's really made a big difference. And actually, I had a coworker who was also trying to do Dave Ramsey, but his wife wasn't quite on board, and he was trying to do their weekly meeting about the budget, and they were doing it on Saturday morning
with the kids running
with
around.
The kids. They had 3 kids,
little guys,
young, like under 7, and they're running around, and he's trying to talk about the finance and the budget, and
she's not into it.
She's not into it very much. So I told him, why are you doing it on Saturday morning? Do it on Saturday night. Make it a date. Pour some wine.
Get some chocolate.
Get some chocolate and make it a fun time just for the 2 of you. It can actually be enjoyable.
And so that's what we do for our Treasury Tuesday. After the kids are in bed, we pull out the laptop, pour a little wine or tea, and get out some snacks for the occasion.
That's right.
And dust off our YNAB and adjust it and talk about whatever we need to talk about that week for our financial house.
Right. It might sound kind of boring, but when we're talking about our money, we're actually, in many ways, talking about our dreams for the future, right? We're talking about how we can save to do this thing that we want to do, or save up for that thing that we want, or, it really is a chance to discuss not just the numbers on our bank statement. It's a chance to discuss what's going on in our lives.
Mm-hmm. And it's really also about what we value. I mean, that's what money is. It's a measure of value. So we're talking about, coming together and deciding jointly on our values, which marriage experts say is a great predictor of marital happiness. So
Exactly.
I think that's why this really brings so much good to marriage.
That is why doing this on a weekly basis and setting aside time to talk about these things is so important, because it helps you get on the same page, like we talked about earlier, and that's such a blessing. And it helps you discuss and agree on the values that are most important, that guide those spending decisions. And it's just such a huge benefit, not only to your financial situation, but to your marriage.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So we scrimped and saved and planned and prepared and worked our budget for years, just, taking care of our retirement, our other goals we already told you about, but also kids' college savings and retirement, and our dream trip to take our whole family to France to celebrate our 20th wedding anniversary this summer of 2020. So it's kind of looking like maybe it's not going to work out for
France.
France.
Like we mentioned.
But hopefully we'll be in the home quite a lot. So maybe we can renovate the kitchen still.
Maybe.
But we're so grateful God has brought us to this place where we have these options. We really want this for you as well. And it takes a lot of discipline and sacrifice in the short term, but really is such a blessing in the long term. So stay the course.
Right. And so it's the budget and the financial meeting to help you stay on the budget, which makes changes to your net worth statement, right? They're all connected. The net worth statement is telling you what your snapshot is at a point in time, but the budget is how you make the next financial statement better than the previous one.
Because hopefully as part of your budget, you're setting aside a certain chunk towards your savings, towards your dreams and your goals.
Towards paying off debt, which also increases your net worth.
Exactly. So it is a huge blessing and way more fun than it might sound to actually work on your money together.
Whee!
So we have some activities for you to get you going on this. This is always good, even if you've done this before, to brush up and take stock now, especially with the pandemic. You might want to revise and rethink, what your goals are, and just getting through kind of all in a little bit of survival mode right now.
Yeah.
That might be a priority. So we have a little worksheet for you to do your net worth statement. Fill it out and see how much you're worth right now. If you've never done this before, you might even consider going back and filling one out for 1 or 2 years ago so you can see how it changes over time. Okay, then we also have some directions for you to look into budgeting.
Right. So if you haven't been budgeting in the past very diligently or accurately or whatnot, you want to get a baseline for your spending maybe over the previous month. And that will just be recording what you've spent, right? And just look at it and be honest.
Yeah, kind of eye-opening sometimes.
Right, exactly. And then ask yourself things like, how much have we allocated towards, spending, saving, and giving? How are we spending our money? Are we happy with those decisions?
Right, because when we started doing this years and years and years ago, we realized we're spending several $100s and eating out a lot at McDonald's. But that's not really core to our values. Our faith, our church, our Catholic faith.
It's not the food that satisfies.
It's so not the food that satisfies. And we realized we're giving a much smaller amount to our parish, and we really wanted to flip that around. And we were able to over time. But you have to actually look at it right in the face and see the numbers to see what's going on.
Right. So discuss together those things. Now, if you have been budgeting for a while, great. You should have a handle on this. But ask yourself, am I budgeting or am I recording? Right?
Yeah.
Are you making those decisions ahead of time before you spend the money and then keeping yourself accountable to that decision that you made? And it's okay to change, right? It's your money. You can spend it however you want. The point is that you make a change intentionally and with both of you in agreement to the change.
Absolutely. So I would like to encourage you to look at YNAB and also look at EveryDollar and see if either of those looks appealing to you. And then we also have a few reflection questions for you. Really take stock of your vision for how you would really like the next year or two to go, given all the gigantic changes being brought about by the pandemic. What kind of a position do you want to be in 5 years from now? Do you want giving to charity to be a big part of how you spend this time? There are going to be a lot of real heartbreaking cases and stories that we're going to see around us. And I know we want to be ready to donate to those GoFundMes that are going to be popping up for the families.
I've already done.
Yeah. So talk about that with each other. And then, what do you want to do as a couple and as a family, to really build towards something, really create a vision for the future so that you can, be magnetically pulled towards that instead of just sucked up and paralyzed by oh my gosh, crisis, everything falling apart around us.
Yeah, one of the things about survival mode and how to get out of it is to recognize that you're in it and also to recognize that it will come to an end.
Yeah.
Survival mode is temporary.
Don't stay stuck in it.
Right, exactly. And having the big picture and knowing that there's something better on the other side is really, really helpful to maintaining a good perspective.
All right. God bless you all. We are praying for you. Take care and wash your hands.
God bless. Bye.